Alright, I am refuting Caroline's speech, and she claimed that video games are beneficial to the mental health and abilities of their players. She supported that with her secondary claims by stating first that video games help improve the symptoms of stress and depression in their players. Secondly, that video games train their players to develop different parts of their brains. And thirdly, that video games improve various mental qualities of their players. First off, that video games do help improve these symptoms. However, they only help someone the same way that a painkiller does. If you keep taking a painkiller for too long, you become addicted, and it's only meant to be temporary. So excessive video gaming increases stress and depression. Mike Ferlazzo, an Iowa State University psychologist, conducted a study with an international research team on the risks and consequences of gaming addiction. The 2-year longitudinal study of 3,034 3rd through 8th grade students in Singapore found it approximately 9% of gamers to be pathological players, according to the standards similar to those established by the APA, which is the American Psychiatric Association, according to for diagnosing gambling addiction. So their gaming addiction is similar to that of those with an addiction to gambling. And some serious problems including depression, anxiety, social phobias, and lower school performance. The researchers' report said that the percentage of pathological youth gamers in Singapore is similar to those in other countries such as the United States, which is at 8.5%, China 10.3%, and Australia 8.0%. Secondly, video games train their players to develop different parts of their brains. Certain video games possess negative effects for a person's brains. They may alter their personality due to the fact that it affects the frontal lobe of their brain, which is where your personality comes from. In a December 2011 article in the Nature Reviews Neuroscience, 6 experts in neuroscience and cognitive psychology, they offered their perspectives on frequently asked questions related to the effects of video games on the brain. One of the experts, Merzenich, references studies that indicate such games can create listlessness and discontent in slower paced and less stimulating academic work or social environments, meaning that they were bored and had a lack of interest in slower paced environments and activities. Games with antisocial or violent content have been shown to reduce empathy, to reduce stress associated with observing or initiating antisocial actions, and to increase confrontational and disruptive behaviors in the real world. So that's basically saying that they will become antisocial a lot easier than if they didn't play those games. Or they'll become a lot more aggressive. The research that the experts looked into showed a correlation between violent games and an increase in aggressive thoughts. Her third supporting claim was video games improve various mental qualities of their players. While video game addiction, some doctors believe that video game addiction should be declared a mental disorder. Lindsay Tanner with the Associated Press reported in an article for NBC News that the signs of game addiction are upholding in the rooms, ignoring friends, family, even food and a shower will plummet, and belligerence will become, will start rising. For certain kids, video games can be as addictive as the drug heroin. A leading council of the nation's largest doctors groups wants to have this behavior officially classified as a psychiatric disorder to raise awareness and to enable sufferers to get insurance coverage for treatment. So, in the end, video games can help mental health and abilities of the players, but too much of it will make it worse for the players.
Okay, your responses are counterclaims, but they're counterclaims that are directed to the claims of fact that the advocate presented, and as long as they are directly contradictory and therefore mutually exclusive, I think that you've got legitimate points that you're presenting here. You talk about it being pathological, being classified as a psychological illness, the equivalent to an addiction, so that seems to suggest that the advocate's first point isn't particularly valid. Now, we don't get any contrasting information on this. We just simply have this classification like it is, in fact, pathology, and there are these kinds of problems that people develop here. I didn't really hear any way of measuring that against whatever advantage the advocate was talking about. The second point on brain development, well, you've got this whole discussion of the frontal lobe and how people become listless in this situation. So that sounds like information that leads to the opposite conclusion of what the advocate was talking about there. So it definitely seems relevant there. The issues about socialization and increased aggression need a little bit more clear application. Why are those issues being made for this particular argument? That wasn't really clear. You did, like I said, have a counterclaim on all of the secondary points, and it was clear what your counterclaims were, but that they are mutually exclusive needed to be a little bit sharper on that second point. On the third point, the same kind of issue comes up. The advocate said that there's some potential mental benefit, and you basically talk about potential pitfalls that are going on here. So again, it does appear that there is some clash on this issue, but how are we going to get a chance to weigh this? You make it sound like it's an on-balance argument. You're almost willing to concede on a couple of these points that it does have this effect, but then it also has this other effect. Well, how do we measure that? Is it more on one side, less on one side? Is it equally divided so that there's not really a reason for deciding? You need to give us some criteria for that, and I think that was sort of missing in the contrast to the evidence that the advocate presented. Another one of these arguments that what you presented is okay, but without arguing the advocate's claims, it's hard to make a very solid comparison. Merci.